welcome to Seed Media. Today we're looking at the CSS Flexbox. Flexbox is a one-dimensional modern technique that allows you to easily align items on the screen. The two main concepts in Flexbox that you need to understand is the parent element and the child element. The parent element represents the outer container, represented in dotted lines here, and the child element represents the divs lettered from A to E. We have a basic layout of a HTML page that we're going to be working with, and I've already set up a little bit of styling to differentiate each of the divs and giving it a default width of 100% and a font size of 40 pixel. And the text color of also white. To get started with Flexbox, all you need to do is set the display property to flex, and you're good to go. The next property that needs to be set up is the flex direction, and the default flex direction of Flexbox is row, and this allows you to align items from left to right. You can also have a display property of column, and this allows you to align items from top to bottom. So basically, CSS Flexbox it's a modern day technique that allows you to align items on a web page horizontally and vertically. You also allow to have a flex direction of reverse that aligns the item now from bottom to top, and you can also have a flex direction of row reverse that takes items now from right to left. Now, the difference between the row and the column is between the main axis and the cross axis alignment. In the row flex direction, the main axis moves from left to right and the cross axis moves from top to bottom. Whereas with the column direction, the main axis moves from top to bottom and the cross axis moves from left to right. The default flex direction is row, so even with or without a flex direction defined as row, Flexbox is going to actually display the row direction. So if you're going to be working with the flex direction row, it's not actually necessary to have row defined. As you can see, even if you comment out flex direction, it has no effect on the website. Let's leave that out for clarity's sake. So we're currently looking at the parent properties of Flexbox, and the next property we're going to be looking at is Flexwrap. And the Flexwrap property allows us to remove the default need for flex items to sit on one line. And the default property of Flexwrap is no wrap, which is currently what you're seeing. So let's give it the property of wrap and see how it aligns. But you might not necessarily get what's going on here, so let me adjust it. Let's take the width away from 100. Let's give the container a width of 100 pixel. Yeah, you can see now that with the wrap property, when the flex items get to the edge or occupy the required space or the available space of the container element, it doesn't try to adjust itself to fit all elements across on one line. It simply moves the other element to a new line. For example, if we were to put this back and include the no wrap option, you find out that it will adjust itself, and currently it's already extending beyond the container elements. We also have wrap reverse that allows us to wrap our items in the opposite direction. Now you can see that the excess items are being aligned first, and followed by the other item that come before it. But before we move to the next item, let's send our container width to 400 pixel. Right, and okay, I think we're good to go. We can work with that. So the next item is justify content, and this aligns item along the main axis of the flex direction. That's horizontally for row and vertically for column. And it takes an element of flex end, and this moves items to the end of the container, and flex start moves item back to the start of the container. It also takes a property of center, and this aligns items to the center of the parent element. It also takes a property of space between, and this evenly distributes item by aligning the first item to the start of the container, the parent element, and the last item to the end of the parent element, and distributes the remaining space among the other elements. It also takes a property of space around, and this evenly distributes with equal space among the items available, and it takes a property of space evenly, and this evenly distributes the space among all the items available. So the next property we're going to be looking at is the align items, and this aligns flex item along the cross axis. And it has properties of the default property is stretch. It has property of flex start. And if we were to change this to column, the cross axis changes. It also has property of flex end. It also has property of center. And all the alignments are based on the cross axis of the flex direction. Another parent element is align content. And this only works if you're going to be using the wrap property, flex wrap property. And it also has flex start, center, space between. Okay, I'm working with row. Let's change it to column. You see that? But if we were to take out the wrap property, it won't work. So basically, you're going to make use of the align content if you're going to be having the wrap property. The align content function on the cross axis like the align item, but requires wrap property to function. So that's basically all we have for the parent properties. You can actually research more, but basically every property we've given out here is supported by all major browsers. So let's look at the child properties. The first thing we need to do is let's change the flex flow back to row, no wrap. And I have a certain love for row. And let's go up to the general item class and give it a height of 40 pixel. Okay, now we're going to be working with the individual items, and the first item we're going to be working with is item C, and we're going to be giving it a property of order. Let's give it 3. You can see that C has been moved to the far end to the right of the row. And order is used to change how items are laid out. By default, items are laid out by source order, with 0 being default value of order. That means items are laid out how you structure them on your web page or your web page, and order is used to rearrange them. So if we are to give D an order of 2, it's going to come after C, and let's give B an order of 1. Yeah. A and E by default have an order of 0. That's why they're before the BDC. So the next item we're going to look at is flex scroll. Flex scroll, and it determines the ability of an item to occupy the available space within a container. B was given a flex scroll of 3. That means B is expected to occupy 3 times the space of A, E, D, and C. And we have flex shrink. Okay, and let's give a general width property of 50 pixel. You can see B was also given a flex shrink property of 3, meaning that B is expected to shrink 3 times the size of the other items. And the flex shrink defines the ability for an item to shrink if necessary, and it has a default value of 1. Finally, we're going to be looking at the align self properties, and this allows the properties of the align item to be overridden by specific flex items. Okay, let's get rid of the height and other properties are initially attached. Okay, I'll get rid of the flex property of shrink, save that, and it goes back to its default property of stretch. So let's align self stretch. Nothing happens to item A. Let's give align self flex end. Yeah, item B moves to the end of the page. Let's just copy that out and give item C center. It moves to the center. Let's give item D flex start. It moves to the start of the page. And okay, we would have said align self baseline. Yeah, it looks similar to the flex start item, but it actually aligns the item based on the baseline direction. It actually aligns the item based on the baseline. I want to thank you all for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button, and I'll see you at the next video.